impressed and so amazed to see so many illustrious women here and so many confident women out there making a change, creating history for Pakistan. Uh, as she said, I am from media now. It's been the last 13 years that I've been with media. Before that, I was with advertising. And before that, I lived in an age of innocence, when I believed that men were from Mars and women were from Venus, where I believed that idealism and romance worked. But during the many years of my, few decades of my work experience, I've realized that we have to, keeping our idealism intact is a difficult job. But while we keep our idealism intact, we have to look and become very rational and maybe a little radical and a little provocative to make a name, to be heard or to be followed. In my life, I've seen a lot of discipline in the world of advertising. When I began in advertising, it was a time when Shazia, with due respects, she's gone, with due respects to the clients that we had, the products that had to be changed into brands. It was a time when we got a brief which identified a problem, and then through the brand or through the product, aspirational depiction or visualization or through a story, we had to give the brand as a solution. So like my dear friend Piyush Pandey, the chairman of Unilever in India, and now, and also the one of the Cannes jury, he said, don't waste your time in working for multinationals. Do something innovative, do something real. Bring in reality into advertising. It's all aspirational and so unreal. And what they are teaching people, what they are teaching the less affluent woman is to ask for more. And ask for more in terms of a material status, in terms of affluence, and in terms of luxury. So today what I see, there's a difference in advertising, because today I see that brands have taken social corporate responsibility as a means of communicating the brand essence. And I'm very happy for that, because they've taken on a responsibility that was much needed, because they are the ones who have the funds and the finances to promote CSR. I came into advertising by fate, or because I had an urge. I was a dreamer, and I had an imagination, and I had a creative surge in me. So I thought advertising would be the best avenue for my expression. There were many more avenues that I could have explored, like I could have been a painter, or I could have been a filmmaker from the outset. But what I learned was that working within tightly defined strategies, working within rules and regulations, you can still be creative and still make your mark. My discontent in advertising came, as I previously said, from very tightly defined brand needs. The other discontent that came was from production qualities of the communication that we were creating. So I worked a little in that area, and I tried to bring in new equipment and new technologies, introduce new technologies. And as far as I remember, the things happened, and they happened slowly, where I made a presentation to Unilever and told them you would be saving so much foreign exchange if you invested in technology in Pakistan. Eventually, digital technology did come in, and there was a paradigm shift in how we created communications. So I was very happy to move from the handheld Steinbeck for my editing and using nail polish to stick film together to going digital. I was very happy when people understood the significance of an HMI, or they understood what color grading was. And uh, by the grace of God, I was happy, I was instrumental in bringing about some change there. And then came my journey into television and media. And as an aspiring young creative, not young anymore, mother of three, and aging, uh, passionately creative person, I came into television and I said, I'm going to bring about a paradigm shift in how people think. I'm going to bring about a paradigm shift in the status quo. And I said, in my first interview, I said, I'm going to be, my policy is going to be education, enlightenment, empowerment, and then entertainment. And I was happened to be sitting next to Benazir Bhutto on her flight, a historic flight when she was back, and a little later she was coming from Islamabad. And she said, so tell me, what is the policy for your channel? And I said, these. It's all with ease, enlightenment, education, and entertainment comes right at the end. And she said to me, do you know, surprisingly, the 5 E's are also my policy. So why don't you write my manifesto? And when she talked about education and empowerment and enlightenment and environment, and that moment I thought environment is a big subject and nobody is doing anything about it, really. I was a part of IUCN at one time, and we were looking at the depleting mangroves, and we were looking at all the environmental issues. And there were 10 points that had been, it was in the charter, the International Charter of Environment, where they had stated that we need to do something about these 10 points. And Mrs. Jaffrey was heading IUCN at that time. And we sent a whole proposal to the then Prime Minister and asking him for funds and to put together an environmental council, an environmental advisory board, an environmental ministry with some funds, and it didn't happen. Later on, and as a channel owner, I have had to fight many battles on many fronts. News channels, I'm sorry, but I'm an owner of a news channel, but where I found things radically wrong was first the politicization of news channels, the vested interest and the syndication of news channels, and then the race for rating. The rating system is actually meant to gauge and to fix rates for advertising. It is no way meant to gauge the popularity of a channel. The reach of every channel is hostage. I'm talking about news channels, and I'll also talk about entertainment channels. The PEMRA code first defined was a very, very basic and misunderstood code. And when PBA stood up and asked for a proper code of ethics, it came very late in the day. Now the Supreme Court has asked for to redefine, it has been redefined now, and now we're waiting for implementation on that code. As far as the entertainment world is concerned, I'm sorry to say, but entertainment became a very stereotypical, formula-driven content creator, all channels. And I once said to the buyer at Unilever, I said, look, when you have a brand and you want that brand to become Unilever, I said, look, when you have a brand and you want that brand to become, the woman to become a loyalist of that brand, why do you, and the woman is your nucleus in your communication, you create her as the nucleus of a home, the most respected, the most loved, the best mother, the best wife, and the best daughter-in-law. Why then do you sponsor content that shows women bashed up and women beating and a harassed woman? Why do you show a woman who has to leave home? Why do you sponsor such content? And the answer that came back to me is because that content gets rating, and that content is accepted. When I asked a maid why she watched the enactments on a news channel, She said, because they are stories, our stories, because we can relate to them. Because we know there's a daily humiliation and there's a daily sort of, um, underestimation of a woman's worth and her rights. I asked at the last forum, I said, why do we channel owners and creators of content have to depend on international funding to create basic stories of nutrition and prenatal and postnatal care? Why do we have to go to international donors to create stories about the rights of women? I'm so glad that Sharmeen Obaid is doing something which is so much needed. I have worked with UNICEF and with Aurat Foundation and with different organizations that are creating content and which are Pakistan based. They may have funds coming in from international donors, but if we took that as channel owners, if we took that responsibility of creating indigenous content, not dictated to by a well-meaning international donor, but by our own insight and understanding of the Pakistani woman, by understanding her needs, her desires, her hidden desires. This is what I have learned in my entire history of communications, that understand your customer, understand your consumer, understand your viewer, and create content that can reach home to them, that can pull at heartstrings, and that can be remembered. I'm looking at the film industry being sponsored right now. I'm looking at film being made in Pakistan, but in an age of despondency, frustration, and ignorance, we have a role to play, a role of responsibility. I'm speaking as all those people in communication. I'm talking to multinationals. I'm talking to media persons. I'm talking to story writers. I'm talking to directors, producers, artists. When Nabila does a content which is beyond beauty, I'm happy, because it is not taking a superficial view of the woman and her appearance. It's looking in depth at the woman and the beauty inside. And with the governor here, with your permission, sir, I'd also like to add that the women of today are ready to work hand in hand with the government, whether it is in crafting policies for media or whether it is towards creating a softer image of Pakistan. Please turn to us and we will help you. Thank you.